right here. So I start usually with this with their out of possession principles, as you see here. So highlighted is here. So this is what I thought they were going to look like based on their prior opponents. So like I said, they played Fort Lewis, who were considered one of the top teams in our league. They went to the Elite Eight this year of our region. So they sat in a 4-4-2 kind of mid-block shape against Fort Lewis. I expected them to do similar against us because I thought they were going to respect us and the way we had played. And we were coming off multiple matches where we had, earned the right to play against top level opposition, and they had sat back against us in a 4-4-2 mid block. So again, I thought it was gonna be a 4-4-2 mid block shape out of possession. It's a very narrow shape. That was something I identified over the course of this analysis in the film. Center backs, I just wanted to highlight this briefly there. Key principle of center backs, very reactionary, do a poor job of kind of marking, tracking runners. That was something I really wanted to emphasize over the course of this. So I emphasized it at the very start here. Then I usually break into our key points here, key ideals I want our players and my teammates to be thinking about as we move into the opponent, as we move into the clip section. Utilizing width, I thought was a really important one for this game for us. As I mentioned, they're really narrow in that 4-4-2 mid block. And also I felt like in moments we had opportunities to switch the balls and create overloads in wide areas because they did a poor job in putting adequate pressure a lot of times on the person with the ball, which I felt like created opportunities to switch the point of attack because, again, they're very narrow in their defending. Transition, again, something I wanted to point out, outside backs and even center backs, which I didn't emphasize here, but I emphasized as I was going over this in film with our squad was, I thought they got caught out of position. And like I mentioned earlier, the center backs and the center mids don't cover space that well. Um, as I mentioned there, or as I've already mentioned, their defenders do a poor job of finding and marking runners in the box. That was, again, something I want to mention. I thought it was really important going in this game to find opportunities to put crosses into the box and make them defend in the box. I didn't think they were great box defenders. 25, I really wanted to emphasize, and you'll see over this video analysis, I thought he's done a really he had done a really poor job in recent games of his awareness and just his body orientation when a ball was being played in behind. There's a few clips I really identified with that, and I felt like it'd be a great opportunity for our forwards. But I felt like we're arguably superior athletes than him to begin with, of looking to run off his shoulder, and especially in those transitional moments because of his body orientation, his body positioning. And another point I wanted to emphasize was that they really did not want to defend here. So these clips I'm going to run through, kind of explain briefly why I segmented these clips and what I was hoping my team would see out of it. So here you see ball gets into a wide area. Real quick, Regis are the team in white. So you see how narrow they are here, which is something I specialize. So the team in blue, they're playing as their opposition, Fort Lewis. See how narrow they are, not putting adequate pressure on the ball. Again, they're in the mid block here, but you can see that lack of pressure. Look how narrow they are on this right side, for example. That wingback's drifting high. That creates an opportunity. Again, no pressure on the ball. And you can see here as well, this is something I highlighted and we froze there. But look at the positioning of the right center back. He's caught a little bit out here, which creates space for their center forward to run in behind. So I understand, obviously, he's stepping there to that other center forward here, but it just creates space for them to run in behind. As I mentioned, their athletes aren't that superior. Creates an opportunity to put the ball in the box. And again, I mentioned they're poor defenders in the box here. You can see here, and this is something we highlighted, but look at the positioning of their center back here. He's very straight on. He's not checking his shoulders to understand where the space is or where his attacker is. And then obviously his athleticism as well. Not a powerful athlete, doesn't cover those last bits of ground here, and it's a goal for the opposition here. So that was, again, something we really specified here. 25, which I've really picked on over the course of this video analysis. This, I really want to talk about his box defending, specifically his ball watching, not picking up markers here. This is off a corner, but ball obviously gets thrown out here. And I especially in the film, I really focused on his position here. Again, not checking his shoulder, realizing he's a forward behind him, does not understand where the space is as well, that he's on the corner of the 6 there. So goal. And again, here's another clip here. I also showcase just how their center mids don't do a great job of tracking runners over the course of this clip, kind of talking about how they don't attack ground. This is another goal. You see here just a flick on, but I really focus here upon the positioning of number 8 and how he gets caught ball watching, doesn't track his runner here. An opportunity for maybe our number 10 or even one of our double pivots in this scenario to run him behind, as everyone is focused on the player with the ball. No one tracks the runner from a deep lying area, and it creates an opportunity, just a simple combination play, as you'll see here, for the runner to break through. Again, number 8, who's supposed to be the centerman, that's supposed to be the guy who's picking up, no idea until it's way too late, and he does not have the athleticism to recover there. This was, again, another goal This comes off a free kick, and I was really emphasizing again their box defending here. So again, I pause it here. Everyone is ball watching. Ball comes off the crossbar. No one reacts, and it's a goal. So again, really trying to emphasize the box defending part of this here. So this here again, I emphasize this in possession, but I was really emphasizing their transition deficiencies. So center back plays the ball, and I highlighted this when we were watching the opponent analysis. I had my coach freeze it here in this moment, but I was showcasing how number 25, when he plays this pass, is not aware of one, where his left center back is. There's a massive gap there, and he's playing relatively risky ball in the center of the pitch. Now, obviously, he doesn't think his center mid will lose the ball in this next clip, but he has no emphasis or urgency to step up here and out of position. It leaves a massive situation where there's a little bit of a gap and also an opportunity where he's not in line with his opposition center back, and no one is picking up, even though obviously they're in possession, no one is picking up the opposition center forward. So a quick transitional moment here, and all of a sudden they're out of position, and it can lead to an opportunity to break forward, which is exactly what happens here. Quick turnover in the center of the park, and I really, again, froze it here when they lost the ball of look where their center back is. He's playing him onside here because he's not stepping up. Also, I mean, you could argue here the left center back is a little maybe too far forward, but that's a simple passing angle. And you look at the opposition positioning, they're kind of sitting in a deep block here in this clip. This is their center forward, but you can see everyone else is kind of sat off. So if this center back is simply caught forward, this should not have been a chance creating situation. And it's simply, this clip also shows their position in transition. I also emphasize this clip because look in this instance where their right center back is. And I talk about his ball watching instincts and how he does not pick up runners very well, especially in moments of transition. He's so focused on the ball here. The center forward plays his pass. It's clearly his man this is the right back here, number 20, who's just barely coming into the picture. So there's all this massive space here behind him, and he has no idea that his center forward is drifted in behind him, still ball watching, still has very little of awareness, and it's clear that the ball's coming into the box here, still no awareness, and he finally reacts, but it's too late. A forward at a higher level probably takes that chance for a better service. Again, this was another clip of player getting to the byline, and I circled and highlighted in this moment of all three of their defenders are ball watching. There's only two attackers in this clip, so they're both on the far post. So you can maybe say the player at the near post understands there's nobody near him, and he's trying to judge where the ball is coming into the box, whether you can play it, whether you can let it go. But the guys in the far post, this would have been the left back and actually the left midfielders, they were sitting in a deep block here, and it came from a throw-in, have no awareness, and they don't even bother to check where their players are. It should have been a goal. So another clip here. This is them again. They're in white in this clip, so they're a little bit of a more of a, they're pressing high up the pitch here. They're looking to win the ball against their opposition here, as you can see. So there are two center midfielders in the middle of the field. That's the player closest to the ball here, and the goalkeeper, number 9, is their center forward. Number 28 is in between the opposition's double pivots here, so he's trying to cut off a pass into there. But you can also see how narrow they are in this picture because their left midfielders all the way, again, he's kind of pressing up on the opposition center backs there. So that's one of them. And then the right side of midfield is very far tucked inside, which just showcases how narrow they are in possession. And you can see in the opposition outside backs. However, they're not putting adequate pressure on the ball here, which allows, and as I highlighted there, you can see how narrow they are. And again, in possession, no adequate pressure on the ball allows that big switch. And also the opposition's left midfielder here is very intelligent, and that he's tucked inside and is forcing his opposition fullback to come farther inside. He's also higher up the pitch to make his opposition fullback respect him, which creates an outlet on the other side. And this was something that was very apparent when watching them in film, that you can create an outlet here. This creates a 2v1 situation. Obviously, a great ball from the goalkeeper out, but it creates just a situation to break forward because of lack of adequate pressure on the ball and being in too narrow in possession. So this creates a chance here. Again, I highlight here. This is, you could argue, a little bit more of, the left back in this picture clearly probably knows he's checked his shoulder prior to this. There's somebody on the far side, but he also has to be aware there's two runners in the box here. Left center back obviously probably has to deal with this guy here, but there's no communication. And I'd probably blame this clip more on the left back. But you look at the left center back's position, the ball is about to be served in the box here. He's very flat-footed and no reaction. Excuse me. Is not in a position to react at all. Ball actually goes right over his shoulder in this clip, but because of his body orientation, is because of positioning, creates an opportunity there. They deal with it, but it's poor positioning and poor body orientation for the fullback. So in this clip here, ball is kicked up in the air. It's a transitional moment, but you can see on the far side that opposition fullback is not pressed up at all. reacts late, ball over the top. That was something I emphasized in my key points. Is their fullbacks and just their back line in general, sometimes out of sync and create space to play forward. This was something I highlighted earlier on. Center backs don't, their center mids, do a poor job of tracking runners, especially in and around the box. This is a run, again, from a little bit of a deeper lying position. And the center mid does not track as runners. This was something I was trying to emphasize to our number 10s and our pivots of, can you make a late run into the box? Can you be running off a player's shoulder? So again, balls played in a wide area. They're pressed a little higher up the pitch here. So I'd say, definitely not in a mid block here, but, balls played in a wide area, putting some bit of pressure on the ball. But again, right here, you see how narrow they are. So that's the opposition fullbacks tucked in the other side. This was a key principle with them in their out of possession setup, is that's their midfielders tucked so far inside. He's trying to cut off the pass into the double pivot. But again, as you see as this clip plays on, they don't put adequate pressure on the ball. And because they're so narrow, again, it creates an overload on the far side of the pitch, an opportunity to switch the ball and break forward. So again, this was something I highlighted. Can we use our wing backs? Play forward. We have 3 center backs. Can we cycle it back to them? Lack of adequate pressure on the ball, and you can play forward. And you can see here a little bit of their transition vulnerabilities. The opposition gets a little bit lucky there, but you can see runs from deep cause them issues. Their center backs, their center mids struggle to deal with balls in deep. So the purpose of this clip here, as I've mentioned here, is obviously just highlighting a tactical advantage for MSU Denver, which is the point of this video. I'm talking about the opposition here in my brief description. They switched to a 4-4-2 as they were chasing the game a little bit more. And you can see how their forward, as I mentioned here, that far-sided forward, so the 4-4-2 setup was tucked inside. You can see how narrow they are and how that center back doesn't want to defend, that it creates a far-sided overload. You'll see in this clip, this is a good ball from the opposition, but just a simple switch, and it creates a massive opportunity here by overloading their back line. They struggle to deal with runners, and also just that narrow setup can create opportunities for a big diagonal opportunity. So this clip I highlight here is just that center mids not great duelers, don't cover a great amount of ground. Again, far switch to the other side because of how narrow they are. You can break forward, find an opportunity to switch, create somewhat of an opportunity for the opposition. So again, lack of pressure on the ball here. They're probably sitting in more of, this is clearly a mid-block shape, but they're putting a lack of pressure on the ball. The player's almost at the midfield line here. And again, they're extremely narrow in the setup. This is fine. Obviously, the winger drops back here. But you can see here, still lack of pressure on the ball. And this is the key principle here, because this is Fort Lewis's number 10. He's dropped into space here, but there's lack of communication. If you're in a mid-block shape, your center mid is probably a good argument they should be picking up. Their center mids don't pick him up. It allows space and the half space to turn. He reacts late, actually, but that creates, again, an opportunity to switch the ball. And lack of pressure on the ball, again, creates opportunities for a far side switch because of how narrow they are. So that was, again, a key principle I was trying to emphasize. Again, that winger gets out late here, and it creates an opportunity for them to break forward. They have a far-sided overload, put the ball in the box, create somewhat of a dangerous opportunity, lose a corner kick there. So there's a turnover higher up the pitch, just kind of emphasized there a little bit. Like this clip was more emphasizing, again, if they're struggling to pass on runners, especially, again, Fort Lewis in a 4-4-2 setup here. Their center backs, again, specifically this right side center back, very poor body positioning and understanding where his opposition's runners are, and it leads to an opportunity for the opposition to play a ball behind. Again, we have a 2-striker setup at Metro. So I was saying, can our striker look to play off that player's shoulder, create an opportunity to run behind? Probably should have been a goal there. So Regis win the ball here. They're in possession. They lose the ball. This clip, again, emphasizing transitional moments. So again, pivot loses the ball. And again, I was really harping on this right center back in this clip, but his body orientation and positioning, doesn't understand the runners, reacts late there, does a decent job of recovering. His right back actually helps him quite a bit there. But again, his body orientation, body positioning, especially considering where they lose the ball in that clip, is too flat-footed, doesn't understand the space behind him, also doesn't understand, it's a turnover relatively higher up the pitch, considering where their positioning is a team. So that means there's a lot of space to play in behind, and I just thought it was lack of good body positioning and awareness from the center back, which is something I emphasized to our team. Again, lose the ball in possession, and you can see, especially that left center back, something I emphasized here, and I think I forgot to emphasize in the key points, but I talked about as I did this film analysis. He was very aggressive in stepping out, and it created a lot of vulnerabilities, especially against a 2-striker setup here. So you see a great opportunity here because he steps out, is very aggressive in his temperament, and leaves massive space for his center back partner to cover, especially in a two striker setup. So that probably should have been a goal. See it again, that left center back a little aggressive and stepping out here, late to react. This right center back actually does a really good job in recovering in this clip. But again, that was something I wanted to emphasize, is that the center back's temperaments in terms of how they wanted to step out and cover ground were not on the same level. So one was super aggressive and I think was a little poor and rash in his decision making. And that was something I wanted to emphasize. Both our forwards are quick and good athletes. So if they can beat him and stepping out, creates opportunities. So here's just kind of head tennis. This clip eventually leads to an opportunity to play over position. And again, that right center back's positioning wasn't great. And you also see how narrow it was. So that was something I wanted to emphasize over just my team as I was doing this film analysis, is they usually play with a relatively high line. And in moments, you can win in just quick transitional moments, look for an opportunity to play in behind. So this was one of a few clips. They don't press very much, as I mentioned there. There was a few clips we mentioned earlier, them in a high block. But again, they weren't really pressing, I would say, in that high block. This was one of the few clips that are actually pressing higher up the pitch. They had scored in this game early on, looking to create an opportunity to score a second goal, probably. So they play short here. And again, you can see the setup. This is more, again, probably a 4-4-2 setup, you could argue, with that second forward screening the opposition's pivot. So as you can see here, again, very narrow in the setup, kind of encouraging the ball here. Ball is played back to the center back. I will say this is, I highlight here, this center forward does a good job here in this clip, actually right here, looks to cut off the switch rather than forcing adequate pressure on the ball right away and looking to force them to play long. As you can see there, it's a 4v4 at the back, so that probably focuses a little bit on why they're not probably looking to play a long ball right away. He limits his passing options and forces him to play in the middle of the pitch. And as I mentioned there, this is kind of, I think, why they were trying to be narrow and having that far-sided midfielder, wide midfielder pinching inside, especially against a double pivot here. He actually is able to, as you can see in the clip, pick off the pass. That was something I wanted us to be aware of, is they're very narrow and that winger can jump in those moments to pick off a pass. So be very wary of central progression when they're pressing high off the pitch and trying to skip maybe to the far-sided. We play with double pivots, trying to skip to that far-sided pivot for us.